Hello there, and welcome to Speaking of Our Words, radio programming that brings you the wide range of voices, stories, and forms of local writers, and offering you some insight into their creative process. My name is Chris Deguire. I teach creative writing workshops at Columbia College, and I am your host. And we have several guests today, one big open mic show today, so why don't we get going? Our very first story will be by regular contributor Richard Bell, who cannot be with us in the studio today, and I will read his piece, which is called 3 Wishes. Richard Bell. Diane awoke with the sun, but did not want to get out of bed, so she laid there, unable to stifle the internal dialogue in her mind or go back to sleep. She finally got out of bed an hour later and fed her dog, Buddy, then got herself a bowl of cereal and, still scantily clad, plopped down on the couch in her living room. Diane had plenty of concerns due to her being recently laid off from her job at the mortgage company. There were no immediate prospects for work, and she had a dwindling savings account. Plus, she was depressed and felt that no one would want to hire her anyway, so she sat there and silently made a wish as a small tear trickled down her cheek. Suddenly, with a loud crash, the front door was broken in off its hinges, and there stood a hippie-looking dwarf elephant. It trotted in, smiling, but was so heavy that it crashed through the floor and landed in the basement. Diane sat there a moment in stunned disbelief as Buddy bolted outside and disappeared. She jumped up and peered down the hole and said, "Oh, crap." The elephant was struggling to its feet as Diane grabbed the phone to dial the sheriff's office. That's when the animal shouted to her that it was there to grant her 3 wishes, so Diane hung up and descended the basement stairs. The elephant introduced herself as Stella and explained that the wishes were in answer to her prayer and that Stella was her fairy godmother. Then the animal performed a fancy song and dance routine about how great it is to have a real job and scuffed up the floor. Diane grabbed Stella's ear to lead it up the steps, but the animal was too heavy and broke each stair it stepped on. Meanwhile, Diane was trying to think of a wish she might like, such as an unlimited free charge card for clothes, her own successful donut shop, and a vacation to New Zealand. Or maybe she'd like a new computer, a new car, and a decent, intelligent man to come into her life. Diane was warned that she could not wish for extra wishes, standard policy, or the universe would implode into a chronosynclastic infundibulum where multiple realities exist together at the same time, crowding each other for elbow room. Looking at the elephant, she inadvertently wished that it was out of her basement. She had no sooner thought of this when, poof, Stella became super light and floated right up through the hole in the floor back to the living room. Diane was unable to follow since her stairs were all broken, and she looked up and yelled, "Stella!" She had to get back up to see this strange animal and make sure it didn't poop on her area rugs. Then, bam, the stairs were fixed, and up she went as fast as she could run. Diane, who had always depended on the kindness of strangers, approached the elephant to ask for a wish, but nearly fell through the hole in her living room floor. That couldn't stay like that. You guessed it, she had no sooner thought it than, zing, the hole was repaired, and she could safely walk across the floor. Stella the elephant looked at Diane, shook its head slowly from side to side, and said, "Some people would have wished for world peace, lady, but not you, eh? You have a groovy day now." With that, Stella vanished in a cloud of thick white smoke. Diane opened a window and sat on the couch, turning on the television. She stared at the screen vacantly through the haze and wondered if it was all a dream until she noticed that her front door was still broken down. Too bad she hadn't received 4 wishes. All right, thank you, Richard Bell. All right, and our next reader is going to be someone new to the show. We have with us Bob Katzman. Hello, Bob.
Hello.
Bob, what do you have to read for us today?
Well, being an immigrant or a refugee from Illinois, I have been writing about Wisconsin. I brought 2 things. One was written in August. I moved here in June, and the other one's October. And they're what it's like to be from a corrupt state into one where everything you look at is a tree.
Sure. All right, very good. Well, welcome to the show, and Bob Katzman, take it away.
Thank you. This is called Wisconsin Stories, Dancing with Then and Now, August 12th, 2015. Hey, I'm not shy, just brown-eyed. Racine is a suburb of Detroit, wall-to-wall used cars. You got some kind of a problem, bud? Transmission shops, emission shops, muffler shops, brake shops, body shops, tire shops, junk cars. Town's only 4 miles by 6 miles, barely enough room for people, but if a car is broken, Ford to Porsche, all of those people can probably fix it. Tattoos seem to be the flower state. I'm going to say that again. Tattoos seem to be the state flower. Women have them everywhere. Down their arms, atop their butts, down their legs, where else? I don't want to know. Though in my first months here, that County Road 131 was tranquil, way better than the interstate. Trucks belching smoke, idiot drivers, weaving and crocheting through more sedate commuters, Wisconsin state cops waiting like wolves, picking off the unwary. Then I discovered County Road H. Wow. Made serene 131 seem frantic, like another dimension of travel. Authentic rural road, no stoplights, slow, quiet. Strange farm vehicles rumbling down the asphalt like giant locusts with jagged folded wings. Driver passes me, tips his hat, cigarette dangling from his lip, face sunburnt. I wave. I silently pass a tiny cemetery, many little white gravestones, all the same size, neatly lined up in rows, sheltered by big oaks, very egalitarian, like a final resting place for elves. No giant gray stone angels making some bigger splash to gain God's favor. Big wide lawns, square houses set way back, 1940s cars for sale, fetchingly posed on the grass. Sign on the dash looks old, cars leaning forward, chrome bumper nose down toward the culvert, longing for the grave. But they were beauties, graceful lines, cars with class, sky so blue, clouds hanging, suspended in the air, like painted there by René Magritte, Belgian guy who really knew his clouds. This quiet path consoles me. On my 60-mile treks toward my faraway store, I think about all I see, my mind composing verses I hope not to forget. Sometimes I sing the plaintive high noon Western movie theme. I know all the words. Do not forsake me, oh my darling, on this our wedding day. I never sound like Tex Ritter, more like south side of Chicago, where the Poles, Irish, and Jews didn't know from country music, but they knew plenty about being forsaken. I pass tall green cornfields, dirty blonde tassels languidly waving like the lazy bangs of a circus pony, fat corn hanging on the erect stalks like stiff Prussian soldiers, seemingly fearless, sadly unknowing, soon to be earless. I imagine being in the center of those impenetrable fields, unknown aging poet, whispering my poetry to the impatient wind, and the wind passes, dispersing my words. There is a sullen peace to my secure anonymity. What the hell? None of it will matter when I'm dead, I mutter to myself, but silently. Wisconsin H. approaches Illinois. State line an afterthought. No big signs, like creeping into Canada. No one seems to notice me cross over. Except H becomes Kilbourne Road, memorializing some forgotten guy. Traffic light ahead. Road dead ends at Wadsworth. 18-wheel truck speeding by. Interstate 41, a mile west. McDonald's, Shell, and Taco Bell. I'm leaving the gentle then behind me, and I'm entering the shimmering now.
All right, very good. And you have another piece there?
I do.
All right.
I'll try to read it better. Maybe. Okay, this was written, October, later. Okay, October 3rd, 2015, after I became a veteran commuter. Okay. Badger State, getting to know you. The munching horses have become more familiar. The insanely circuitous route I take home, each night a bit less incomprehensible. The surly, burly guy with steel gray hair smiles at me when I buy gas from him. The beautiful deep brown Root River, less of an impossible barrier every morning as I learned the handful of roads crossing it. Going south on 32 each morning, I pause at Main Street's western turn, greeting the blinding sunrise over Lake Michigan as if it were a cuddly puppy waiting just for me, too. Sometimes a single sailboat passing before I turn west toward the gray concrete interstate. I have watched the fierce windstorms knock over trees, supplying me with jagged firewood, makes my nighttime log fires rage and blaze as the wind forces its way through the chinks of my sturdy brick fire pit. The bright burning hardwood glows, dims, flares, crackles, and crumbles. In the damp early mornings, only powdery white ash remains. Amid the million red barns and puffing tractors, besides the meadows and forests, beyond the sleepy silence of a small town downtown, and the tilting abandoned silos, there are foreign film festivals, Thai, Japanese, Indian, and Italian restaurants, real Jewish delicatessens, steaming corned beef and pastrami, reborn industrial renaissance, old buildings with new concepts, an antique intersection surrounded by modern wreckage, piles of smoking timbers and twisted steel, chain-link fences with bright yellow warnings, twinkling purple neon seductively luring me into a red brick building filled with books, thousands of old paperback books, not a Kindle in sight, tchotchkes and fainting couches, limp red-furred, dead-eyed fox stoles, zoot suits and crumbling pulp magazines, Roy Rogers and Davy Crockett, curling theater posters of long-forgotten movies and their heroically posed, untwinkling stars. I frequently visit these ghostly cemeteries of fame, visiting bits and pieces of my life scattered within dim display cases, disintegrating flies resting on history. We discovered Pick and Save, as wonderful as Whole Foods, but more proletarian pricing, a fragrant bakery, apple pies and walnut brownies, ethnic breads and chocolate chip cookies, ice-filled glass cases swimming with red, white, brown, and yellow fish, and yes, staring right at you. Enough displays of beer, brats, and cheese to swell the middle American hearts of any proud Wisconsin Green Bay Packer tailgater. I still get lost sometimes, bright street lights illuminating only Main Street, one small bungalow looking identical to another, black shadows like a jigsaw puzzle. Often I'll take the pitch black road less traveled because I can't find the damn road I want, but maybe that's just me. And when I want to be alone, easy enough in Wisconsin, I ride between fields of ripe October corn, the stiff, dry rows reminding me of a frozen parchment army, some rows higher than my old Toyota. The hilly land undulates like a lush and opulent woman, all hips and curves. Each old farm sold and developed is beginning to fill me with dread. Walgreens, Costco, Citgo, replacing cows, goats, and horses. Gentle vistas with a single structure. I accept my getting old, but can't anything else just stay as it is? I dread the coming winter. I fear a paralyzing blizzard, isolating two hopeful grandparents. Fluffy piles of quilts awaiting us. Candles and hurricane glass tucked aside in every room. Cupboards filled with canned food. We hug our warm dogs at night. Fragile older people, diminished energy, fortified with experience, well aware of the wide mood swings of Wisconsin's sizzling, frozen weather. Earth's North Pole 3,000 miles above us. Nevertheless stoic, come spring, like pink crocuses poking through the snow, we will still be here. Thank you.
Yeah, Bob Katzman, thank you very much. Yeah, those are great. All right. Walter Gascoigne is up next. Hello, Walter.
Hi, Chris.
And Walter, what do you have for us today?
Not my usual. It's a rant, and it probably could have went on and on and on. And there's no editing involved, so forgive me if it sounds a little rough.
All right, very good. A rant by Walter Gascoigne. Walter, take it away.
It's titled "The United States of America." Let me start by saying F you. Did that offend you? If so, why? We never met? Why would you let two little simple words said by a stranger upset you? would it upset you even more if someone you cared about said those words to you? We live in a world where people get butthurt over everything and anything. So what if I don't believe in God? Who really cares if I'm Democrat or Republican? What business is it of yours if I'm banging a 17-year-old? Everyone who is so busy worried about other people that they never stop to think why they care so much about something that has nothing to do with them. It reminded me of the 5 monkeys in a ladder experiment. For those of you not familiar with the experiment, here's a quick rundown. 5 monkeys are put in a cage. There's a ladder in the middle. On top of the ladder is a banana. With me so far? One monkey climbs the ladder to get the banana. The other monkeys are sprayed with cold water. Every time a monkey climbs the ladder for the banana, the other monkeys get sprayed. Eventually, the monkeys who are getting wet start beating up any of the monkeys trying to climb the ladder until no monkey dares to go for the banana for fear of retaliation. Now, take one monkey out, replace him with a monkey that's never been in the cage. He climbs up the ladder to get the banana and gets beat up by the other monkeys, even though they're not sprayed with water, until he learns not to try for the banana anymore. Next, substitute in any other monkey with one of the original 4 still left. The new monkey once again goes for the banana and gets beat up, but this time the monkey that never got sprayed with the water joins in on the beating. Keep substituting monkeys until no original monkeys are left, and they will continue to beat up on any new monkeys trying to climb the ladder, even though there are no monkeys left who were sprayed with cold water. Why did the monkeys continue this behavior? If you asked one of them, they would tell you that's just the way it is. And that's the world we live in today. We are taught only what things are, not why things are that way. We blindly listen to people, television, and radio to tell us what to buy, what to eat, where to take our vacations. They make laws for our own safety because we have become too simple to judge what is right and wrong for ourselves. We have given up our freedoms and our own thoughts so that others would think for us. Don't believe me? Then why are there laws like a seatbelt law? Would I hurt anyone other than myself by not wearing one? Are they trying to save me from myself? The answer to both of these questions is neither. They truly don't care for my safety. I know. They never come and help me shovel. Oh, my poor back. So what are their intentions, and how did we let them take such control of our own lives that we let them save us from ourselves? Like Pavlov's dogs, we drool over the things they dangle in front of our faces, making us prance around for trinkets and acceptance. And like the monkeys, we do what we've been told without question. It's for your own good, son. Do you want to know why they give us 2 choices when we vote, Republican or Democrat? It is to give the people the illusion of having some control. Imagine if there were only 2 restaurants in the world, McDonald's and Taco Bell. We wouldn't know any other kind of food and be perfectly happy with those 2 choices. Don't believe me? Are you happy with the Democrats or the Republicans? Some will say yes, others no, but what choice do we have? That's just the way things are. Do you know what I say? F you. Let's change things, get our proverbial heads out of our asses and think for ourselves. Why do we need a politician making decisions for the majority when we are the majority? When did we give up thinking for ourselves? Is it too much work to want to be in control of our own deeds and decisions? Oh, but how can we not have politicians, you say? Simple. We work together. United, we make plans. United, we implement them. We live in an age of instant communication, unlike any other time before and probably since. We can discuss issues with complete strangers on the other side of the country and agree or disagree. We can decide what is good and what is bad simply by discussing it and voting on direct issues ourselves. No need for middlemen anymore like politicians to do that for us. Things were done like that before because we couldn't travel 300 miles to sit on a law-making procedure. We have that power now, yet we still do things the same because that's just the way it is. And like I said, I could have went on and on.
I would say where you call it a rant,
Wow.
I'm going to call it a personal essay. But yeah, very nice. Walter Gascoigne, thank you very much. You are listening to Speaking of Our Words, and next up is Ron Larson. Hello, Ron.
Hi.
Ron, what do you have for us today?
I have a little piece that it was autobiographical, and I actually wrote it to be put in this column that this person was starting because she was looking for a husband. It's a long story, but it never she didn't do the column or the website, so here I have this piece.
All right, very good. Well, Ron Larson, take it away.
My intimate moment with Ellen. The following is a submission for the newly launched Intimate Moments with Ellen column in the Shriveled Spoon News. I must begin this new column with an admission and an apology. I am the one who introduced Ellen to Peter Malloch in 1988. I trust it is unnecessary for me to comment on the profound impact and dreadful consequences of that introduction. Suffice it to say that I've become increasingly remorseful over the years and feel that I must in some way atone. Let me begin this atonement by issuing a profound and heartfelt apology to Ellen and to all her friends and relatives for any psychological or emotional damage my association with her may have caused her over the years. I deeply regret any ill effects of my friendship and humbly ask her forgiveness. As to what other elements my atonement may consist of, I will leave that to time and the generous and compassionate disposition of Ellen to determine. Having hopefully cleared the air with an apology, let me now give the readers a description of my intimate moment with Ellen. I first met Ellen at the University of Wisconsin in either 1988 or 1987. I think it was probably 1987, as that was the year I met Sheila Brady through a mutual friend. Sheila and Ellen were roommates at the time and were sharing an apartment near State Street, halfway between the university campus and the state capitol. I had known Ellen for a while when my intimate moment took place. It occurred during a party in an apartment across the hallway from Sheila and Ellen's. Sheila and Ellen had become friends and with their neighbors, and they socialized quite frequently. I remember a few details of this party. I can only assume that it was a typical of college parties at the time, or any time. Music was playing and everybody was drinking to excess. 12 guests wandered through the apartment, dancing or forming small groups for earnest 20-something conversation. I'm sure that both Ellen and I felt no pain. The one remarkable feature of the party was the presence of Scandinavians. I remember one of the hosts was dating a Scandinavian exchange student. I think he was from Norway. I remember that he hung out with 2 or 3 other Scandinavians and that they often socialized together. I think they were all present at this party as I remember interacting with them, but specific instances escape me. At some point during the party, Ellen and I were talking when the necessity to relieve herself impressed itself upon Ellen's consciousness. She must have informed me of this and asked me to keep talking while she went to the bathroom. I followed her. The bathroom was located off the main hallway with the toilet next to the door. One could stand in the hallway and look straight at the toilet if you left the door open. We continued to talk as Ellen went in and closed the door. Apparently, though, she couldn't hear me, or I her, and after a few moments she opened the door without any comment. There she sat, in all her splendor, seated comfortably on the toilet as she urinated. I think she asked me if I minded if she left the door open or something to that effect. I said no, somewhat shocked by the question. My shock and surprise was not so much from the sense of impropriety, but more from the unexpected and unusual nature of the action. It is not often that a friend lets you see them urinate. I could see her entire form, and while not displeased with the image before me, I felt somewhat embarrassed at first, looking at her only as much as was necessary so as not to appear uncomfortable. Her nonchalance and informality, however, soon impressed itself upon me. What a wonderful thing, I thought, to be so free with your body and so lacking in shame that you're willing to let another see you urinate. Additionally, I felt that she wouldn't have done this with just anybody, but obviously had felt close enough to me that she could do it with me. As the minutes wore on and our conversation continued, I realized that I was deeply moved by the honor Ellen had bestowed upon me. I took it as a sign of an authentic friendship that was developing between us. Our friendship had reached a new level. To this day, I see that intimate moment as a turning point in our relationship. Although there would be several more years before we would attain the status of friends, I feel that Ellen opened a door not only to a bathroom, but to a new level of intimacy and friendship. Today, Ellen claims not to remember our intimate moment together. I'm not willing to call her a liar on this issue, so I believe her when she says this. It is unfortunate that she doesn't remember, however, because she doesn't have the warm feeling of loving gratitude that comes from the fond memory of a truly intimate moment with Ellen. A moment that signaled not only a relatively deep level of trust and intimacy between us, but that also served as a catalyst to propel our friendship forward into new and richer areas of intimacy and understanding. In fact, I think it was the very next year that I introduced her to my new roommate, Peter Malik. That's it.
All right, Ron Larson, well, thank you very much. You are listening to Speaking of Our Words, and next up is going to be Greg Deguire. Hello, Greg.
Howdy.
Now, Greg, before I ask you what you're going to read, I would just like to let our audience know that when I solicit submissions for this show, and when I do actually get the submissions by email, I don't actually read them. I'm looking basically for about how long they are. So I like to be surprised by the stuff when it comes in. And I know the story that Greg is going to read. This is a story that he's told many times. And I just want everyone to know that this is just pure coincidence that we're moving from Ron's story that takes place in a toilet to Greg's story, which also takes place.
It ends in a toilet. I guess we shared a yearning to tell these stories today.
Oh, very good. If only
Thank
that
you.
was your
Thank
story.
you.
All right, very good. Greg Deguire, take it away.
So the deal is, I've been fortunate enough to travel a lot in my younger days. My brother knows this, through bowling tournaments. I was quite good for a good long while. State tournaments, national tournaments, I traveled a lot of different places. And when I didn't travel anymore, I thought, well, that was a lot of fun to do these things. So I started writing some of these stories down. This is one such story called One Day in Reno. For the first time since I've been going to these national bowling tournaments, I actually thought I was finally going to have fun. One of my friends was on our team, someone my age, someone to hang and joke with and have a little fun with, my pal Mike. After all, this year, the National Bowling Tournament was going to be held at the brand new National Bowling Stadium in beautiful Reno, Nevada, the biggest little city in America. Yep, Mike and I were going to tear up this town and put the FU back in fun. My dad and I had made all the arrangements. There were 6 of us in all, 5 team members, myself, Dad, my pal Mike, my dad's friends, Bill and Rudy. The 6th was Bill's wife, Paula. Dad and I had decided that it would be best if we went through a travel agent, so we got the airline tickets, rental car, and hotel reservations all at one time. We gave the names of our group to the agent, and they made all the arrangements for us. Finally, the day had come for the big trip. Flying in itself can be difficult enough. Trying to fly with bowling equipment is another story. The airlines will only allow 2 pieces of luggage and only 1 carry-on. That only gives you 3 pieces of luggage to work with. 1 bag had to be for the bowling balls. The bags we use could house 2 balls in 1 bag. There are bags made to handle 3 balls per bag. However, the airlines claim that they were too big and cumbersome. Even at the same time we were checking in at the counter for America West, there were several people checking in with skis. Reno is a popular destination for skiers. These skis were in 7-foot-tall plastic cases. Are you kidding me? They were greeted very warmly by the ticket takers. So, gonna ski, huh? Well, have fun and enjoy your flight. And oh, don't break a leg. And then to me, and you, sir, welcome to America West. And what are those? Bowling bags, ma'am. Bowling? Do they still do that? Yes, they do. In fact, this city, Milwaukee, is the capital of the American Bowling Congress. Hundreds of thousands of people will be bowling in this tournament that has been going on since January. It's now April. Still 2 months to go. In fact, America West has partnered with the American Bowling Congress to give bowlers discounts on plane tickets. Oh. So that left just 2 pieces of luggage, 1 for clothes and 1 for carry-on. Some folks, like my dad, use the carry-on bag to pack another bowling ball, which makes for more comedy because you have to put carry-ons through the metal detectors. Funny enough, on an x-ray, a bowling ball looks like a round sphere, like an old-timey Acme bomb from the cartoons. Airport security gave Dad funny looks, which we thought was crazy because so many people from Milwaukee flew to Reno to bowl. They acted as if they had never seen a bowling ball before. After about a 3-hour flight, we touched down at Reno International Airport. Finally, let the fun begin. All 6 of us got our stuff together and met at the rental car place. Dad and I go to the counter. After all, he and I had set all of this up. We had reserved it all under my name and my credit card number. This should be easy enough. Hello, welcome to Hertz Reno. How may I help you? She asked politely. Hi, yeah, there should be a minivan reserved in my name. I have an itinerary from our travel agent with our reservation numbers on it for you. I think you'll find it's all in order. Okay, sir, I'll be right back, she said, taking the paperwork from me. After about a half hour later, she returned to her manager. Dad and I were not happy. What the hell is going on around here? I blurted. We're tired, hot, and thirsty. Where the hell is our van? The manager ignored me and looked at my dad. Excuse me, sir, but is there a Bill Youngblood traveling with you? Dad and I looked at each other and we both turned a little white. Like, you see, Bill has a long backstory, Dad's friend Bill. The short version is that back in the 70s, Bill was brought in for questioning for the murder of his ex-girlfriend. He had an alibi and was let go. The crime was never solved. For a second, Dad and I thought that good old Wild Bill's past had finally caught up with him. Luckily, that wasn't the case. It turned out that the travel agent had mistakenly put Bill's name at the top of the itinerary. So inadvertently, everything was put in Bill's name but my credit card number. The manager asked me for all kinds of identification as he thought I had stolen Bill's credit card. What a mess. After a lot of explanations and some hardcore questioning by both shifts of Hertz managers, we finally had our van. We had reservations at the Reno Hilton. At the time, it was the largest hotel in Reno. Dad and I went to check us in while the rest of the Scooby Gang moved our bags inside. "Welcome to the Reno Hilton," she exclaimed. "How may I help you?" she asked. Once again, I stated we had reservations for 3 rooms. Myself, Dad, and Mike had booked a suite. Bill and his wife had their own room, and Rudy, the other friend, had a single room. I gave her a copy of our paperwork with the reservation numbers on it. I see, she said, looking at the computer. "Can y'all hang on a sec? I need to get the manager. I'll be right back." No way, I thought. Not again. Moments later, she returned with the boss. He asked, "Excuse me, but is there a Bill Youngblood with you?" Wow, it's like deja vu all over again. "Sure, I'll go get him for you." As usual, Bill was outside smoking. As per the last time, we had all kinds of explaining to do and questions to answer. So after all that and several phone calls to the travel agent, the manager finally gave us our rooms. On the elevator to our rooms, I kept thinking how I couldn't wait to get here. Now I couldn't wait to leave, and we haven't even bowled yet. Quickly, Dad, Mike, and I discovered that our room wasn't a suite either. Guess who got it? Bill and his wife. Oh, well, that was cool, I guess. They had to wheel in a cot in our room for one of us to sleep on. Dad got one bed. Mike and I had to flip for the other one. I won the toss-up. Maybe luck was changing. Once we settled in, Dad said he needed to use the van. Mike and I looked at each other and said at the same time, "Hookers." Well, good for the old man. So Mike and I went to the casino to relax and gamble. A couple of hours later, I noticed my dad frantically running into the casino, sweating profusely and trying to catch his breath. My immediate thought was, hookers 1, dad 0. Point goes to the hooker. I went over to him and he tried to tell me something. He said, "Boy, I got a problem," he said. I tried to hold back the laughter and thought, I can't wait to hear this. "Okay, Doc, what's up?" I asked. He whimpered out that he'd locked the keys in the van while it was running. Shocked, I said, "Is that all? That's easy. I thought for sure you had a problem." "Never mind. Let's go take a look at the van." Yep, it's running," Mike said. "All locked up, too, by the looks of it," said Bill, lighting up a new cigarette. "Okay, no problem," I said. "I'll call the rental car place. We were there just about 5 hours ago. They should remember us." I said, "I'll look up I took out a big clunky cell phone and dialed them up. Hello, Reno Hertz." They ain't lying, I thought. "Hi, my name is Greg. I rented a minivan earlier this morning. I need another key to the van as we have locked this one in the van." "Okay, let me just check here. I'm sorry, what's your name again?" "I'm sorry, sir, but your name is not in our system. We don't have a van matching yours checked out. We have a van matching yours, but it's checked out to a Mr. Youngblood." "Hello, sir?" My dad watched in horror as I threw the cell phone across the parking lot. Later, Bill called Hertz back from inside the hotel, and about a half hour later, Hertz sent a courtesy van for Bill with another set of keys, free gas vouchers, and coupons for free breakfast and coffee at the hotel. Unbelievable luck, that son of a... I'd had enough for one day. We all had dinner at the hotel and called it a day. About 1 o'clock in the morning, Mike and I were jolted out of bed by my dad screaming. He ran into the bathroom screaming and yelling, "Sweet weeping Jesus!" Mike looked at me and said, "Dude, what's up with your dad, man?" I shrugged my shoulders. I said, "I don't know." I went and listened by the bathroom door, and it sounded like Dad was praying, puking, and crapping all at the same time. I knocked lightly on the door and said, "Dad, are you all right?" He says, "No, I'm past another kidney stone. It's killing me." Now, kidney stones run in the family. I had just passed one about a month ago. We left on this adventure. I still had some Vicodin left that I had brought with me. Flying is much easier on painkillers, let me tell you. "Dad," I said, "relax. I've got some pain pills in my travel bag right by the sink. Go ahead, take a few." "Oh, thank you," he said. I heard him open the bottle, run the water, and then silence. "What a madhouse this is," Mike said. "It's no crap. Finally, we can get some. Before I could finish that sentence, Dad was screaming bloody murder again. Screaming Jesus as loud as I've ever heard him scream before. Ah, what the devil. As soon as Dad started screaming again, Mike started to laugh uncontrollably, too. In fact, he laughed himself off the cot. As it turned out, Dad was allergic to the Vicodin. Oops. And it made him rapidly lose bodily fluids out of almost every hole in his body. After what seemed like an hour of listening to my dad scream and whimper in pain and agony, all was silent again. Mike and I were having laughing fits, so we're giggling like schoolgirls, and then we heard the toilet flush. Yet again, more screaming. Mike went into a laughter seizure of sorts. I want to know what the hell was going on now. I opened the bathroom door and saw my dad naked, with his hands on the counter and his legs jumping off the ground. It looked like tryouts for the Special Olympics. The reason for the screaming was that up from the toilet was a bubbling crude. The toilet had backed up, and everything that he had put into it was coming back out at him like an angry crap volcano. Dad was trying to tap dance around a sea of his own turds. I thought Mike would need an ambulance with oxygen due to all of his laughing. I called the front desk and told them that our toilet had malfunctioned. They said, hold on, we're sending up some technicians, which turned out to be 2 Mexicans in a shop vac. I stood at the far end of the room, grasping for a handle on the moment. I listened to Mike and Dad both panting for air, along with the sounds of the shop vac gurgling and then a loud of thump, thump. Those were the sounds of the turds shooting through the tubes of the shop vac. Some things you can't unsee or unhear. We hadn't even started bowling yet. And it was then that I grabbed my room key, and that is when the drinking started.
All right, very good. Greg Deguire, thank you very much. You are listening to Speaking of Our Words. Okay, then, and next up is going to be Troy McDonald. Hello, Troy.
How you doing?
Good, Troy. Good, Troy. What do you have for us today?
Well, there's this, Walter had a good piece, and it kind of ties into this because I was hearing what was going on with Flint, Michigan, and I was just moved by that. And I think there's a point in your 20s, maybe late 20s, where you start to realize the world isn't what they tell you it is. That it's not as shapeable as you want it to be, that things are going to be the way that they are going to be. And I think I hit that moment with this crisis.
Yeah, all right, you're talking about the water crisis over there in Michigan. Very
exactly.
Good. All right, well, Troy McDonald, take it away.
If you are poor, this country was never for you. Never has that been more evident than in Flint, Michigan, where a state-appointed city manager, in order to cut costs, switched water sources that in turn poisoned residents with lead. The damage is permanent and multi-generational, meaning the kids poisoned today could possibly pass down defects to their children and beyond. The government apparently knew about the dangers for more than a year. The story that life is rosy and that if you just work hard, everything will be okay is utter BS. That's why, in part, I ended my podcast. I realized that I was a spoke on the wheel. The system is broken. The mighty dollar reigns. It's always been about the money. That's why my generation has more college debt than any other, crippling growth and opportunities. Millions can't even go to school or don't even try. Hope is lost. No wonder Donald Trump resonates or Bernie Sanders. People are pissed, and rightfully so on both sides of the aisle. Yet we talk about the Oscars or Kanye West being broke. Are you kidding? What does that say about us? That's why I've recoiled kind of into private life. I'm not on social media. I won't be endorsing candidates or engaging in the ongoing babbling of life. It means nothing in the grand scheme of things because nothing changes. I have absolutely no hope for the future of our country in a world where a government can poison their own people and put them in subpar schools. Any dastardly act is possible. The mighty dollar reigns. No election and no movement I see will change the blatant misuse of power. My heart breaks for the people of Flint and all over the world who now realize what I've just become to realize. Everything can be taken away from you, and no one will care. A few Twitter hashtags won't fix this problem. No one can. It's too late. The happy ending is a falsehood. My tears are with you.
All right, wonderful. Thank you very much, Troy. You were listening to Speaking of Our Words. And I'm going to read now an excerpt from my Worst Summer Job novel in progress. I've been reading excerpts from this book for quite a while on the show. I am very close now to getting a first draft of this book done. So the book is called Turn of the Century. In a couple of lines here, what you need to know. This excerpt is coming from very near the end of the book, I believe. So what you need to know, it follows the points of view mostly of the character of Jason, but of two other characters, Sarah and Courtney. It is October of 1999. This is the day after homecoming. Jason and Courtney are dating. They are high school seniors. Sarah is a bit older, and she is the girlfriend of Jason's older brother, Michael, who was killed in a car accident before the book actually starts. They all work at a grocery store together. They all have secrets. Bob and other characters who pop up are co-workers at the store in this particular scene. Courtney has just left the store where she brought Jason some dinner, and Jason is asking Bob for some advice about women. They are both in the produce back room. It is a night shift, and they are listening to the Green Bay Packer game on the radio. And one more bit of backstory here. Jason had an episode at the high school at the homecoming dance, and Courtney had to take him home a bit early. So here we go. So Jason told Bob about last night, how dinner was nice and the dance and everything, and how it all went to hell when Tank Richards showed up drunk and belligerent, and then the car, and how he felt he saw his brother and Sarah. And I just felt a switch turn me off, Jason said, dragging his fingers along the table by the radio. That sounds totally natural, Bob said. Yeah, but somehow I thought that messed things up with Courtney. How? I don't know. I think... He turned to look at Bob across the room, who hadn't moved. I think she thinks there's something between me and Sarah. I don't know. That also sounds natural. Jason leaned back against the table and crossed his arms. Tragedy brings people together in very weird ways, Bob said in that philosophical tone of his. Jason narrowed his eyes a bit, trying to process that. He knew that was true, but he hadn't really thought it through too much. And it drives them apart, Bob added. Jason didn't feel he and Sarah were being driven apart. Maybe they were. Were they? Or was this about him and Courtney? What do you mean? He asked. Bob shrugged and crossed his arms too and smiled a bit awkwardly. I was married once, he said, looking right at Jason, and that took him by surprise, and Bob nodded. Right out of high school, he added. We met middle of senior year. Met here at the store, as a matter of fact. Jason shifted a bit and squeezed his arms a little around his chest, totally interested. We got married about a year after graduation. It wasn't easy. She was going to school out in Platteville, and I was here at Parkside. She got an apartment near campus, and every other weekend we'd see each other. It seemed to be working. We were both faithful. Then I dropped out of school. She finished and moved back here. Then a few months later, she gets a call from her old advisor. They were close. I'd met him. He was cool. But his wife was killed in a car crash. Jason curled his lips. I know, Bob said, seeing Jason's reaction. So she goes out there for the funeral and everything. I couldn't get off work, and since it's a 3-hour drive or so, she gets a hotel, and I guess they got closer. Jason uncrossed his arms and slid his hands in his pants pocket and looked down at his feet. The only sounds, the hum of the cooler and the announcers on the radio, the game underway. He didn't know what to say. She never said anything, Bob went on. But he started calling, like, a lot, and she got real secretive about things, and our sex life just totally stopped. I didn't know what to say to her. She didn't know what to say to me. So one day I just asked her if she was having an affair with him. I knew she was. And she admitted it, and neither of us knew what to do next. We knew we had probably rushed things. Jason wondered then if he and Courtney were rushing things. How could he tell? How could anyone really know these things? What happened? He asked. Bob shrugged and grabbed a rag from the cutting table and worked it over as he approached Jason. We split up and she moved out to Platteville. We got divorced, and as far as I know, she's still with him. That sounds unbelievably hard. Well, it was. Things felt like they were pretty good. Jason looked down, and Bob placed a soft hand on his shoulder. Look, he said, I'm not trying to scare you or anything like that. Well, I am scared. Well, being scared is okay. Growing up sometimes sucks, and a lot of times you're just making it all up as you go. There's no template for life, but things work out in their own crazy ways. Bob stepped back and paced around the room, winding back over by the cutting table. Do you wonder if you're moving too fast with Liz? Jason asked. All the time. Sometimes I just don't know what to do, because I know she's divorced too, but for different reasons. Then I just tell myself to do what feels natural. That work? I guess. I don't know. I like Courtney. Yeah? Yeah, but I don't know what to do next. You want to do something nice? Or romantic? I don't know. I owe her a dance. We didn't get a slow dance last night. And I want to see her more. We don't really see each other at school. You guys share a locker? No, Jason said with a laugh, then thought that was a great idea. Bob was a genius. Would she like that? Bob asked, tilting his head a bit. I don't know. Bob shrugged. Ask her. If she looks freaked out, just say, it's cool. You don't have to. Bob turned and looked up at the clock. Man, I gotta get back to work. On their way back to the sales floor, Bob said, here's another idea. And when Jason got home that night and watched the end of the game, Green Bay winning, he reconfirmed that Bob was a genius. And even though he was nervous about practice and the aftermath of his teammates' tirade, he was more nervous about approaching Courtney with what he and Bob called Phase 1. And I'm going to hold it right there. You are listening to Speaking of Our Words. All right, so usually when we have a few minutes left in the show here, I like to bring up a couple of writerly topics, and the topic I'm going to bring up today is something that we've talked about several times in the past, but I think it's always pertinent. We're always looking as writers, where is our next story going to come from? So what I'm going to ask you guys is, what inspires you? What inspired the pieces that you brought in today, or where do you guys all find that your material tends to come from, whether it's from real life or from journals or from Richard Bell, who can't be here. I don't want to know where his stories come from. But Bob, we'll start with you. What inspires you, or where do you find or discover your material?
Started writing poetry in 1958 when I was 8, and 58 years later I'm still writing it. The only rule I have with my stories is never to write fiction under any circumstances. I don't keep a diary, but in between 1958 and now, and I do have a blog with about 200 stories on it in poetry called differentslants.com. I began selling coins in 6th grade, left home when I was 14, opened a newsstand when I was 15 in Hyde Park, stayed there 20 years, but before that happened, I also opened a kosher delicatessen when I was 19, opened a literary bookstore in Hyde Park near the U of C, found out they weren't as literate as I thought. Then I started a distribution business and a 4-year distribution war with the country's largest distribution company, and became the first distributor of gay magazines in America. And that's why they're available all over America. I kind of broke the barrier. Out of work for 2 years because no one will hire you if you've been self-employed since you're 15 and have no resume and didn't go to college. Then I bought a world travel foreign language bookstore in Lakeview called Europa. And also, to make sure if that went to hell, I had something to back me up, I started a back issue magazine store called Magazine Memories, which I do today, 27 years later. And I have a store in Skokie. It's not mythical. Skokie exists. It's 100.
I've been there.
Well, you're the guy. Anyway, it's 150,000 magazines that go back to 1576, and I will never run out of material.
Wow, that's a good story. Walter, where do you find your inspiration? Where do you get your stories from?
Normally, I like my story. I'm kind of set in my ways. I learned it, and that's all I know is what I've read. H.G. Wells and Stephen King, and it's only what I've been taught or what I've learned that I can use and go on to use in my work. This particular piece, this is all me. This is me every day. I just kind of got it on paper. Like I said, I could have went on and on and on. Well, if I would have put the word money in there and started going on that, that would have been like another 500-600 pages just ripping on money. Yeah, this was definitely all me, and I don't know if it turns out any better or not. I think it comes off. Sometimes I come off as an asshole, so it's best to stick to the regular fiction story. So maybe people don't see the real me. Kind of hide myself inside of a fiction story instead of this reality that because I rant at people at work all day long. They're sick of hearing me about it. So,
well, like I said, I call it more of a personal essay than a rant. But both are things that I give my students to write about, working on rants or letters to people that they would never even think of sending, just as a way to get their voice on the page. But it's also a way to find, material too. So, all right, very good, Ron. Where do you come up with your stuff?
Well, I think this is probably very unexciting, but from my own personal experiences from real life. So like this is an example, the story I read today, this event actually happened, in Madison. So all of my writing is either kind of autobiographical or, I do kind of the historical nonfiction, writing about other people, and events that happened, And I have a question for Walter, which is, with you, I never know what's fiction and what's not fiction. And so my question for you is was that a real monkey experiment?
Yes.
Is that a real experiment?
Yes, that's actually a real experiment. Yeah.
Okay.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And actually, it sounds like one of Richard Bell's stories.
Monkeys and everything.
Exactly.
Monkeys.
Exactly.
And he gets his inspiration from his id, or his the I don't know what I mean, like this kind of surreal. It's wild.
And he's loaded with those stories. I know he's got a book about them too, and I think the name of his book is "Life is Sometimes Funny When." I think that's the name of the story. Richard's going to kill me. We'll come up with it before the end of the show probably. Greg, where do you come up with the inspiration for your stuff? Because I know that you've written some fiction and you write a lot about things that have happened to you in real life.
Well, sometimes you can't make this crap up. Just have to kind of look around and see what's around you. I mean, you said it to me a long time ago. Write about what you know. Years ago, when I found myself out of a job and unemployed, and I didn't know what else to do, and I always thought I had a lot of ideas. I'm like, it might be fun to write some of these down. I mean, I have no formal writing training. Just started writing things down and see how it works. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. But as far as the stories go, it's like, well, what happened yesterday that was funny? Oh, right. I can write about that. That's really it. Mm-hmm. And even if it's only funny to you, why not? If it gives you, then you can go back 10 years later. Oh, I remember when that happened. That was kind of funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you can maybe even tweak it sometimes or rework it when it's given that long to sit sometimes. But I think one of the things you said, I think, is very key to writers, especially beginning writers, is that sometimes the stories work and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, sometimes they don't. And I wrote this easily, must have been maybe 10 years ago. I don't know if it was 10 years ago. It was a while ago, and I haven't really looked at it much since then. But this event really did happen. That really was one day in Reno. And the players that are involved, I let them read the story, and they all give it their full blessing. That's pretty much how it happened. Mm-hmm. Except Wild Bill passed away, so I gave a copy to his wife, and she was laughing so hard she was crying. Yeah. Because it really happened. So I mean, anytime you can tap the well of personal experience, I think Ron said it. I mean, that's sometimes that's what's best. Because you can try to make up stories, but you can drive yourself crazy. Well, maybe this idea works. Maybe I should come up with other characters. Why? Why put yourself through the burden? I mean, if a real life experience was funny enough, why not? I mean, I wrote about when I go to different now horror movie conventions. Dee Wallace stuck her tongue in my ear. If that's not a story waiting to be told, I'm not sure what is. But again, that just happened in real life. I mean, sometimes like I said, you can't make up crap like that.
Yeah.
It's best to write about what you see in everyday ridiculousness.
And then these stories end up writing themselves.
Exactly.
Sometimes. Yeah. And then, Troy, how about you?
Well, I kind of blew it, I guess, before I read. But, for me, it's, again, to echo what you guys are saying, personal experience. But for me, I have to care. Like, me writing, it's an emotional thing. And I have to care about how the reader's gonna, or how I'm gonna, say it, and how the person reading it's gonna feel. Those are the most important things to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would echo all of this. Ron, you have something to add?
Yeah, just a piece I'd like to add to this is that I think what is important, at least for me, is how you look at an event. I mean, you can have like there's some things that may, on paper, so to speak, or just on the face of things, maybe it's not so interesting or funny. But if you look at it, it's like finding the humor in it, or finding the drama, or whatever in that event.
Yeah.
And then kind of framing it, that way.
Yeah.
So that's what that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah. Yeah. And Bob, you got something real quick to add?
Real quick, as I don't think you learn to be a storyteller. I think you are. My parents both were storytellers, good ones, different, violent. And I think, to me, what a storyteller is you've got a river of time. A storyteller knows in that river where the beginning is, where the middle is, and where the end is, and you cut it, and meanwhile everything keeps flowing. And it's okay if you're writing for yourself, but a real storyteller knows that if you're going to write a story and offer it to somebody else, you got to make the end worth waiting for. That's how I define what a storyteller is.
And I think human beings in general are natural storytellers. It's another level to take it to the page, to write it, to type it, to read it, to have other people read it. I would echo all of this advice. I think this is all really good stuff. I would also add, I also believe that it's not just writing what you know, but write about things that you also find interesting, because if you are engaged in the story, there will most likely be at least one other person on the planet who will also be engaged in the story. And even if you don't want to write real life stuff, I know there are lots of people who just want to write straight up fiction or want to write a genre like science fiction or horror or fantasy. I think one of the tricks is to make the fantasy world sound as real as you can possibly be, and to sort of echo Troy's comment, you got to find that emotional connection that you have, whether it's you as the writer or characters to an audience. Walter, one more thing?
One more thing, yeah. One of the best story I think you can ever write, read, or whatever is something that's so unreal, but written in a reality that you can believe and accept, and you actually think it's real. I think that's one of the best powers the story can have.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so we are out of time. So real quick, I know a few of us have some things to plug in 3 seconds. Bob?
I publish 5 books. You can call me and get them at my store, which is theoldmagazinestore.com, 847-677-9444. And I ship.
Very good.
And Walter got a little story in Gothic Sync Press from the United Kingdom. You can find it on Amazon. It's just a little short story.
All right, and then you can read my blog at cdeguire.wordpress.com. Okay, before we call today, those of you who are interested, perhaps you're in the area and you want to join the Kenosha Writers Guild, which is a sponsor and producer of the show. They meet every third Thursday at 6:30 over at the Hedberg Library and Carthage College. Please look up KenoshaWritersGuild.com on the internet for more information. So this show is a production of the Kenosha Writers Guild. If you have any questions or comments, or you wish to participate on this program, please visit KenoshaWritersGuild.com and come to one of our meetings. They are free and open to the public. Please visit the Facebook and YouTube pages for this show, Speaking of Our Words, and feel free to leave a comment. Thanks to Dave Cole and WGTD, Steve Brown and Nita Hunter, our engineer Troy McDonald, Lisa Adamowitz-Kless, and the Kenosha Writers Guild. Thank you very much to all of our guests, Richard Bell, Bob Katzman, Walter Gascoigne, Ron Larson, Greg Deguire, Troy McDonald. This is Chris Deguire, and the world needs your stories. We will see you again. Thank you for listening.